right, yeah, just welcome everybody to Media Day. Appreciate everybody being here, of course. Coach Mark Stoops entering his 11th season in Kentucky. Obviously, will establish the school record for length, and he's now become one of the top 10 longest tenured coaches in FBS college football. And also will be looking to add to his school record total of 66 wins this season. And at this point, we will turn it over to Coach.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for being here. Appreciate all you guys, what you do, the stories that you write, the time that you invest. I see a lot of you, not only here, but I see you on the news or in the paper or on Twitter, and but covering a lot of events, not just football, but all of our student athletes. And you work exceptionally hard, and I've gotten to know quite a few of you through the years. It's been a long time, so thanks for what you do and the coverage, and I think always being fair. So appreciate that. But you know, excited about this team going into year 11. It's hard to believe. You know, joked about it before. Sometimes it feels like an eternity, and sometimes it feels like a blink of an eye. So it's been a journey, to say the least. I think you know, the times are very different right now than when I stepped into this job, and as I mentioned many different times, you better be ready and willing to adapt and to change, or else you will be irrelevant very quickly. So we're trying to keep up with those times. It's evident by our roster. You heard me say a million times, and even went over this with our team a bit yesterday, but in the first 10 years, you constantly heard me talk about build the winning culture, select the right teammates, constantly developing them. And things are different. We have to do that very quickly now. You look at the roster, you look at the roster turnover, and you know, there's not 100 guys in that room that have been there for years and have heard me talk and heard us build that culture. It's different. We have to do it very quickly. We have to adapt. We have to build this team. I feel like we have a very good football team, but we have to come together and be united and be a team very quickly. I think even between last year and right now, you know, I learned different things, and just the approach has got to be different. Last year was the first time, you know, the transfer portal, NIL, it's been involved, you know, for a few years now, but I think last year was the first year that it just kind of hit us like right in the face of what you're dealing with, and the change. You know, I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. It's just different, and so we're adapting. We're approaching it in some ways differently. Don't ask me how. I mean, that's internal, but there's just things that I need to have a different approach and take a different approach. And but I like the way this team has worked. They've been very good this off season. Very solid winter. Great, you know, our fourth quarter drills, things we do in the winter. Guys worked extremely hard. This summer it's been relatively quiet, and the guys have worked. And camp is off to a good start. So things are in place. I think you know, the questions that you're going to ask me, I think maybe some of the weaknesses that we had a year ago are being addressed. They were addressed in the offseason by personnel. They're being addressed by scheme, making sure we're doing our part as coaches to put players in a position to be successful. And hopefully, we'll, you know, through the course of this next 4 weeks, we're going to improve in a lot of areas. But it's fun. It's a great group, and we're attacking every day. And the approach may be different than 10, 11 years ago, but the enthusiasm is still the same. I feel really good about this coaching staff. I greatly appreciate the work that they put in, because it is different. The time with recruiting is way different. You know, the sacrifices that coaches have to make, it's year round. It really doesn't stop, and our group has been tenacious in their approach, in sacrificing their time, and it is what it is as far as that goes. But it's challenging, to say the least, with your assistant coaches and with your time demands. So, but we're not here to complain about any of that. We're here to build up this year's football team, and again, it's a really good group. I feel like we have a really solid team, so I'll open it up.
Mark, health-wise, is everybody expected to be practiced able to start this week?
Yeah, we're in pretty good shape. You'll see a guy or two out there today that just got a little nagging injury yesterday that you're going to miss out there practice today. Won't take you long to figure it out, but he shouldn't be out but 2-3 days, hopefully. A little soft tissue injury. One thing about our strength and conditioning team, they're amazing, and I wouldn't change them for anybody. But we push it pretty hard through the summer, and I can't blame this one on them. But we had a couple soft tissue injuries late in the summer. But our guys work exceptionally hard at speed development and pushing it to that limit of not training or overtraining them, but pushing their mobility and their speed development.
Coach, that indoor practice facility's got to be really enhance your program, hasn't it?
Yeah, thanks. I meant to mention that in my opening statement, but it is one of a kind. It's beautiful. There is a ton of space. We had to go in there already this year, yesterday morning. Right now we're still finishing some summer school, so our schedules are a little goofy, so we have to go real early in the morning on certain days, and had to go in there already, and it was wonderful. I mean, there's just a ton of space, and just the fact that our quarterbacks and receivers can catch balls on the sidelines and not worry about the track, and the D line and O line can get all the way off the field. There's a lot of square footage in there, and it's a first class facility. So thank you to all the people involved, and it's an honor to have Karen and Rich Brooks' name on that field, and it puts a smile on my face when I saw that yesterday going out there, and so it's a wonderful facility, and thank you.
Is this the first time you've been in it this
Team,
week?
as the team, yes.
Mark, can you talk about the schedule and also just the fan excitement with the number of tickets that have already been sold?
Well, can't thank the fans enough. Again, it's redundant. I say it a million times, but it's so true. We can't do this without the fan experience. That's a big part of playing in the SEC, and coming into an environment and coming into Kroger Field and feeling that electricity, feeling that energy. It's something else. And so thank you. We need everybody there. We need them loud, and it helps. It helps recruit, helps our players. Helps us. It makes a difference in games, as you've seen through the years. So very excited about the season ticket sales and the excitement on this football team. And the schedule is awesome. I'm worried about Ball State, so I'm not getting out over my skis, but I'm worried about. Really, I'm not even worried about them right now. I'm worried about us. We have a lot of work to do, but it is going to be, as always, a fun, entertaining schedule.
Mark, you mentioned the roster turnover, cornerback and tackle in particular. I know it's only 2 practices, but what have you just seen? What do you notice about those offensive tackles there?
Yeah, I think much needed. I mean, there's no denying that we need. I'm not taking your question. You caught me there. No, those guys have done a good job. Depth. We needed the depth. We needed the length. We needed some bodies, and I think it was 5 offensive linemen in general, and and the tackles were much needed. Playing good.
Coach, you talked about changing scheming around things. Is there any specific players that, I know it's a couple days in, that you're thinking the scheme may help a little more, their style?
No, I don't want to get into that. We'll see. I think if there's any one position where we're down a little bit in numbers right now, it's wide out. I think you all know the skill that we have there, and some of the talent we haven't had in a while. So we have some really good players there, but with that opens up the opportunity for others to leave, and that it kind of hurts your depth a little bit. So we got to watch that position a little.
Mark, you mentioned the coaching staff. Obviously, Liam, we've talked a lot about it. Soon we're not going to talk about it and just see it, but how crucial is it to just have him back? And what are you seeing out of the system, the players having to run the offense?
Yeah, there's no question the comfort level with bringing Liam back is there. I mean, it's evident, it's obvious in our building and with our players, and because he knows so many of them. But he has that energy, and again, I don't want to put any and all problems on a previous coach. That's on me. Things that have happened a year ago. The areas where we fell short, are a lot of them are within the program, and that's I'll shoulder that. And but with Liam, he brings an energy, he brings a confidence. The difference is this time compared to the first go around is he is a proven. He's proven himself that he could be successful in the SEC. When I hired him the first time, he hadn't had that proof yet. I believed him, or I wouldn't have hired him. But I think this time, I think you could feel that confidence, and I like the creativity. We have to play to our strengths and be adaptable, and he does that very well.
Mark, you mentioned about the depth of the offensive line, in particular Nicholas Hall, who had a little off-season situation. How far is he about ready to come back, or is he back?
Yeah, Nick had an injury, and I think he is going to have to take a medical red shirt. So Nick lose another tackle there that had some promise, but had an injury and is going to have a hard time coming back from that.
Mark, you mentioned the soft tissue injuries here at the start of the season. What role does the data coming out of the exercise science and sports science programs, what role does that play in the program as we approach the season?
It plays a big role. It still does. If you recall, when I came here day one, I was probably as whatever you want to say, up to my neck or as knee deep in sports science as anybody in the country at that time. Anybody, any pro team, anybody, because of who I brought with me and where we started with that. What we found over the years is what is very useful, what's not, and then there's still that human element. It's still like who can handle certain training, who could be pushed to that limit. And I'm not talking about the type of training that we all worry about as far as like heat exhaustion or, so don't misquote me on that. I'm talking about speed training and mobility training and things of that nature, really testing, and pushing their speed. Not running so many times that they're gasping for air. Our guys are in shape. We don't have to worry about that. And I love our strength and conditioning team. So the sports science is very important. I still look at it in particular as I talk about certain guys where I'm thin. And so we monitor that. I monitor it daily on their loads, on their speeds, and and to see how much they're training and make sure we don't overtrain them. But that's also team-wide. But there's also a gut instinct that you have to go with too. And so if you ask Coach Edmond and Mark Hill, they're going to listen to their gut, and they're going to do what they do, to some extent, of course they take it, but so it gets rather complex there. It's a hard question to answer. We look at it all. I look at it all, certainly through training camp, and as I look at speeds and things as we want to ramp up, so my approach is always gearing up, pushing them extremely hard, and then getting ready for the season, so there's, it's a very, very simple version of it, but in general here, but I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Mark on Nick Hall, is he out for the season or out for his career?
Yeah, I may be premature on that.
Still in process, it's being evaluated, still in process.
I'm in the process, yeah.
Mark, how long
Could be either or.
Mark, Ben Chrisman, is that a guy you all like at guard specifically, or would you rather see him
Guard.
tackle?
Guard.
Mark, how far in camp can you get a grasp on how improved you are up front on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think it'll take a little time. I know we're improved to our standard, I don't know.
Mark, as far as Devin Leary is concerned, from a leadership standpoint, how has he transitioned and kind of taken that role here?
Devin is a very natural leader. He doesn't overdo it. He still wants to work and take care of his own backyard, and ultimately, finding his voice and finding that leadership role to whatever level it goes to. It'll happen authentically in time.
Mark, your first game, talking about heat and so forth, the noon game, September 2nd, do you want heat like we've had here recently up until this week, or not? And what kind of measures do you take when we're trying to practice in mid-90s?
Yeah, I think, well, the last part of your question is the most significant, as far as precautions and watching that. I mean, you absolutely have to, and you have to take that very serious when you have some of the heat that we've had. Even going in the indoor yesterday was different than being outside because of the humidity in there with all those bodies, and that's different than some of the outside heat. But I think the biggest thing with precautions is listening to my trainers and making sure we have built-in breaks and making sure they're hydrated. And the players have to do a great job on their own, and we talk about that often, but young men will be young men. Some of them take it very serious and eat the right foods and hydrate and do all the things necessary to take care of their body. And some maybe don't do it as good as they should. So we constantly educate them on that and want them, at their peak. And there's going to be times when it gets tough through training camp. Now, training camp's not what it used to be. And there's no two-a-days. There's no, we used to have them all day. And that's not the case. And so we got to make sure they're in shape, and we do it safely is the most important thing, John. But as far as what I wish for, you know my answer already, don't you? It is what it is. Whatever, man. Bring it on.
Mark, coaches often talk about making that jump, a player from his first year to the second year, big jump. What do you expect of Dion, and how can he add to what he showed some glimpses of last year?
Well, the first thing I noticed with Dion is he's got some natural leadership qualities, so everybody looks at his physical stature and the way he plays, but maturity and growth, in that way is extremely important. And he, even as a freshman, he had a way, if you watch him, to lead without being overly vocal. And I appreciate that about him, because he's really a team guy. And in this second season, I'm seeing that a little more vocal, and I'm seeing him, lead and be comfortable doing it. And on the field, I think it'll translate. I mean, because he's had a full off season. He's had the strength and conditioning. He looks quick. He looks in shape. And we'll keep on working, but I expect big things out of it.
Mark, how much do you think the new clock rules will change coaching strategy, if at all?
I don't think much. I don't think much at all. The strategy, I many of you will act like I don't, but I tried to manage that very well back when we were ground and pound, and and had to, that was very much on my mind throughout games, time management and watching the clock, and what our strengths were, and what we could do to win football games. And so I think overall it won't change the game much. And the strategy of it to be determined. You know what I mean? As far as like win and diving into the weeds on that. That'll still be a game-to-game game management.
I think
time management.
The theory here is that if like you're behind, maybe you need to become aggressive earlier because it'll be easier to run out the clock.
It could be. It just depends on how fast you go. We've worked on ourselves of being more efficient. We're pro style, but to be more efficient of not taking so much time. And that issue, what you're talking about, that did bother me last year as well, of not being able to have some tempo, if not just a 2-minute drill. You know, when you're behind and you need to pick it up. So that's being addressed just internally without the issue.